Hey everybody, this is videos for my grade 9s, my English 9s. I'm putting this up as an explanation of theme. I'm doing dishes, and I think when I do dishes. So I'm putting this up for my grade 9s when it comes to theme. Because this lesson that we're going to be focusing on in the next 2 weeks, this task, and really for the rest of the year, is going to start focusing on theme. And theme is one of those harder things that we have to tackle. It requires a lot of critical thought. As an English teacher, and I've been doing this job a while, it's one of the harder things that I cover in the classroom. So let's go over theme. Okay. You can Google what is theme, and you'll get 100 YouTube videos and websites from teachers like me talking about it. There's a lot of different definitions. Well, they're the same, but they different versions of it. Theme for me is this kind of central idea, the deeper meaning that's running underneath the surface of a story. Theme is not plot. Remember, plot, guys, when we looked at short stories, plot is the events, the connect the dots events of a story. What's the plot of my day so far? Well, I woke up, I had a shower, I did Google Classroom stuff, I had an online meeting and another one, I'm washing dishes now. That's the plot. Those are the events of my day. But that's not the theme of my day. The theme would be like, I don't know, the overall idea that my day taught us, maybe. And where I want to start with theme is when you're looking at theme, a story of theme, look to the protagonist, okay? Especially when you're looking at short stories, because they usually only have one or two themes in a short story. They don't have time to develop other things. But look to the protagonist, because often the protagonist learns something. After all, every story, we've talked about this in class, every good story has to have a conflict. Without conflict, there is no story. So if you have a conflict in your life, you usually learn something. Win or lose, a conflict teaches us something. Don't you find that with everything, right? Any kind of conflict you've had, you probably learned something. So look to the protagonist, because they probably learned something, and learning something means changing, change. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at Cinderella. Let's take Cinderella, the classic Disney version, or any version of Cinderella. I use that story because it's probably one that you're all familiar with. So Cinderella, let's look at her. Think of her in the beginning of the story. What does Cinderella want at the start of the story? She wants to be happy. She wants to be happy, and she thinks she can find happiness by getting along with her wicked stepmother and her stepsisters. She does that by obeying them, no matter what they do, no matter what orders they give her. She just yes and believes that if she just is kind and obedient, she'll find happiness. She doesn't feel that way at the end of the story, though, does she? The story teaches her that despite what she wants, which is just to get along by going along, that sometimes you need to stand up for yourself, right? You need to stand up to authority. Even when you don't want to, you might need to. So she learns that sometimes you need to stand up to authority, stand up for yourself in order to find happiness. Okay, so that would be a theme of the story, right? Sometimes in life, sometimes in our lives, you've got to stand up. Even when it's hard, stand up for yourself in order to find happiness. Okay? Let's stick with Pixar and focus on another one I was thinking of, Inside Out. I was thinking about that movie as a pick of the week. I won't do it, but I was thinking about it. Anyway, with Inside Out, if you haven't seen it, it's about these emotions. They're personified. They live inside this little girl's head named Riley. She's 12, I think. And the main character of that movie, the protagonist, is Joy, the embodiment of happiness, joy. Think about Joy in the beginning of the movie. What does she want? She wants Riley, her human, that she lives inside of. She wants Riley to feel nothing but joy, feel nothing but happiness, right? She's constantly shunting away sadness. She's trying to, basically her existence is to try to keep sadness and most of the other emotions out of Riley's head. She wants Riley to feel nothing but happiness, right? And Riley's this kid that always seems happy, even though it turns out that Riley's feeling a lot of sadness. So how does Joy, the character, feel at the end? Is that what she still wants at the end of the movie? No, right? At the end, she has learned that sometimes there's a time for sadness, that there's a crucial role for sadness, that sometimes we need to feel sadness, that it's a positive, that by feeling sadness and telling people that we're sad, we can connect to our family and friends. They can understand us. We can connect to ourselves and understand how we're feeling, and we can move on. So Joy learns that sadness is just as important as happiness, and that in order to feel true happiness, we need to sometimes feel sadness, right? Well, that's a theme of Inside Out. What a valuable theme, that there's a role for sadness, that it's okay to be sad, that it's helpful to be sad, right? That's a theme. So we can look to the protagonist of a story and look at the lesson they learn to find a lesson maybe that we're all supposed to learn. And that can be a theme. Now, stick with Inside and Out, because sometimes you don't just look at the protagonist. Sometimes you look at the surrounding characters. Think about that movie Inside and Out from a parent's point of view. I told you in the beginning, Riley is one of those kids that always seems happy, because that's what Joy is kind of making Riley feel. She's always happy. They move to a different city. She moves to a different school. She leaves her friends and hobbies, but she seems fine, and her parents are like, oh, we just got a kid that's always happy. Isn't this great? And then Riley, when she finally lets sadness in and she feels she can't talk about it, she tries to run away. She thinks about running away. And she comes back and just loses it. She just starts crying. And her parents are like, oh, God, what's up? And then they bond with Riley. So their parents learn a lesson too, Riley's parents, right? That sometimes the people in our lives, even though they say they're okay, even though they say they're happy, I'm fine, that they're not. And we need to pay attention. We need to listen. And we need to talk to our family and friends so we can be sure of how they're feeling, right? And sometimes what people say, how their lives are going, is not the truth. I'm sure you're grade nines. You probably learned that lesson in your own lives. So we can look at Joy's experience to get a lesson, and we can look at the family's experience, the parents' experience to get a lesson. That's fantastic, right? And those are themes. So let's stick with that, because you're going to be looking at themes for this week and next week. You're going to be reading a short story. You're going to look at the instructions next. After you watch this video and you get the instructions, open up the next folder in Google Classroom, guys, and look at that assignment, because it's going to be focusing on themes. So remember, you can ask me through Google Classroom or any of the English teachers if you need any help at all. Just let us know, because we're all, good at this. Ask us for help. We'll be hosting meetings like they do. Miss Bax, Miss Jensen, everybody's been doing these Zoom meetings, which has been great. But if you have any questions, let us know, because this theme stuff's going to be hard. And you're going to be asked with reading a story and articulating a theme. And then the second week, you got to pick a different story and articulate a theme. And that's not easy. So let's elevate our thinking. All right? Don't panic. We can get this. We can do this together. Let's elevate our thinking and get this done. Have a great Easter long weekend, everybody. You're reading this next week, but, whatever. Bye.